I could answer this question by pointing to the inflation forecast.
Welcome to Financial Stockholm. Today is Tuesday, December 13th, 2022, and we start the 12 days of Christmas, which happens on the 25th. But if you're in Sweden, you celebrate on the 24th, so you're just a step closer to Santa. And then hopefully we can find some Christmas gifts, not too much coal under the tree, because that's not ESG, which is where we start with today with their EU. The EU, which remember was against protectionism and was against the issue of non-ESG. So they're proposing a tax compliance, so to speak. So if you're producing a good in a foreign country where you're not adhering to the same ESG standards as we have here in Europe, you will receive a tax on your import when you come into Europe. Now, the question is, how will this hold? So we saw the other day that Volvo is going to produce their cars in Europe. Now, Volvo doesn't have the energy in Europe to produce their cars in Europe that are, going to be produced here by 2035 or 2030. And it doesn't matter whether you're going for full electric or all cars. Now, Mercedes is producing electric vehicles in Poland. We talked about that. And Poland is producing 2 nuclear generators or reactors, okay? And then they're going to also, they've brought in the Balt pipe, which is the LNG pipe from Norway. And so Poland is going to increase its electrical grid power. Now, that doesn't mean Europe in general. Europe will get some small incremental value increase by these increases, but the electricity price is still going to be high. Because remember, Holland is putting in 2 new, or they've allocated money to put in 2 new, and they will not start the building until 2028, all right? And it's not clear who they're going to use for the building. Now, they currently have 1 nuclear reactor there, Borssele, but we don't know what the next 2 will be and who will produce them. And one of the key issues to building functioning compatible nuclear is to go with a similar design. That's how South Korea has done it. That's how France has done it. And that's why they've been so successful in their nuclear production. Now, France did have problems of maintenance issues, and that's key to it, maintenance. If you don't maintain a nuclear plant, it's very dangerous. And then it's also a problem because you cannot produce power. So when you look at nuclear and you say, well, we have these problems where they shut down when they're not maintained. And it's a little odd that all the problems of maintenance in Europe are occurring at the same time. It's just strange. And it all depends on how much you know about numbers and what you believe in coincidence. But anyway, so the EU will be implementing import taxes on non-ESG. And this goes back to the energy grid, as we were just discussing, because if you're building out a better energy grid in Asia, and then you're producing more products there, then your wealth will have a faster creation of wealth in Asia than it will in Europe. You'll see a transfer of wealth from Europe to Asia. So then, even if your products are not ESG compliant, why would you want to sell them into Europe? If the consumer in Europe can't afford them, your market's going to be closed anyway. So it's questionable how this protectionist policy will work, and it's questionable if they'll be able to push it through. Remember, Europe has the issue right now of saying to Russia that they're only going to pay $60 per barrel as opposed to current market prices. We'll see how that goes through. Now, and to add on to this, you see the electricity prices in London or in England have spiked because the North Sea, although it's windy in Parliament in London, it's not enough wind to make the power generation. So the North Sea power is not working on the windmills or the sea mills, and we have an issue there. In Sweden, we have we continue to have very high electricity prices. We'll see how many people get thrown out of their houses. We'll see how many people go through this terrible economy we have here in Sweden with what they had before. And to make this worse, we have the continued violence. We had our statistics out about shootings. We are more than something like 6 times the amount of our neighboring Scandinavian countries and in terms of the shootings and deaths here in Sweden versus theirs. So Norway, Finland, Denmark, we have more than they do by about 6 times. And then What you also have is a clear level of corruption. Now, we've had corruption in the Swedish police before. We had an individual that was a molester, and his name, the joke name about him was Captain Clanning or Captain Dress, and he was a horrible individual who was raping women, and he was the chief of police, and he was let out early, by the way. He's actually free on parole now. And then you have this next corruption in the police, where a high-ranking police officer promoted his female colleague, and it turned out that they were sleeping together, and also that she wasn't qualified. Now, whether we go back to a meritocracy of promotion level in Sweden remains to be seen, but I think the debate is being slowly entered into, because if it was his hunting buddy who had been promoted and put into place, of course, that would have been a level of disgust that we would have seen in the press. But now that it was a female colleague that he was sleeping with, it's a little bit muted, but it's also a little bit muted on how she was not qualified for the job. So we'll see if meritocracy comes back into play, and we'll see what that means for corporations and their board members. And then also we have some further developments about midwives and what they're doing, and operations they're performing on genitalia of children, and how this will transfer and play over to the current debate on people who want to have those operations on their genitalia to appear as another sex. So it's all coming together. So Sweden's in the midst of a identity crisis, and we'll see what this means, because we're now, most of the businesses that we're celebrating or getting orders are in the munitions and arms manufacturer. So you see BAE, which bought Haglund and their vehicles, is getting a 1.5 billion euro order, 1.45 billion euro order for 150 of the wagons that they're producing. So, but that's the main part of the news. We'll watch about the rates, we'll watch about the electricity, and we'll continue to have political debate. But remember, you can always make money in the market, whether you're long or short, and you can always make money long-term or short-term. It's all on how you're trading. So if you're happy and you're looking at the market, well, that's great. Remember to subscribe, and you can do that with the press of a button. So we'll wish you a great day, and happy success in your trading. Thank you very much.